Marcus Thompson had always been good at blending in. After 8 years of military service in classified operations that officially never happened, he'd perfected the art of being forgettably ordinary. His apartment in downtown Portland reflected this carefully cultivated mediocrity: second-hand furniture, basic cable, and a job at Davidson Electronics that paid just enough to keep him comfortable, but not enough to draw attention. The day everything changed started like any other Tuesday. Marcus was troubleshooting a circuit board when his supervisor, Janet Williams, approached with an unusual request. The company had landed a government contract that required someone with security clearance to handle sensitive components. Marcus had mentioned his military background during the hearing process, though he'd been deliberately vague about the details. "Thompson, I need you to take point on the Meridian project," Janet said, sliding a thick folder across his workbench. "It's classified work, but the pay bump is substantial. You interested?" Marcus flipped through the technical specifications, his trained eye immediately recognizing advanced communication arrays far beyond anything Davidson typically handled. The equipment specifications triggered memories of similar systems he'd worked with during his time with the 75th Ranger Regiment, though he kept his expression neutral. "Looks interesting," he said simply. "When do we start?" What Marcus didn't know was that his new colleague, Dr. Elena Vasquez, had been watching him carefully since his first day at Davidson. Elena wasn't just any engineer. She was part of a deep-cover research team studying human technological capabilities for reasons that would have strained the beliefs of even the most open-minded science fiction enthusiast. Elena had arrived on Earth 3 years earlier as part of an advanced scouting mission from the Centauri Collective. Her people had been monitoring human development for decades, particularly impressed by humanity's rapid technological progress and their inexplicable ability to innovate under pressure. What made humans truly fascinating to the collective wasn't their technology. It was their unpredictable nature and their tendency to exceed all statistical projections when faced with impossible odds. The collective's interest in Earth had initially been purely academic. They were a peaceful civilization that had achieved interstellar travel through careful planning and incremental progress over millennia. Humans, by contrast, had gone from horse-drawn carriages to space travel in barely a century. This accelerated development pattern was unprecedented in the collective's extensive database of civilizations. Elena's mission was to embed herself in human society and identify individuals who represented the peak of human potential. Her advanced technology allowed her to maintain a perfect human appearance while conducting detailed behavioral and psychological assessments. She'd chosen the identity of a brilliant but socially awkward engineer, a role that allowed her to observe human innovation processes firsthand while maintaining professional distance from her subjects. Marcus Thompson had caught her attention during his first week at Davidson. While his official records showed a standard military background followed by technical training, Alina's sophisticated scanning equipment detected residual traces of exotic materials in his system, isotopes that only existed in the most advanced human military facilities. More intriguingly, his behavioral patterns suggested extensive training in asymmetric warfare and adaptive problem-solving. The Meridian Project provided Alina with the perfect opportunity to conduct a more detailed assessment. She volunteered to work as Marcus's technical partner, a decision that would prove far more consequential than either of them could have imagined. Their first collaboration occurred in Davidson's secure laboratory, a windowless room in the building's basement that most employees didn't know existed. Marcus arrived to find Alina already examining the Meridian components through a powerful microscope, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail as she made detailed notes. "These aren't standard communication arrays," she said without looking up. "The frequency modulation patterns are unlike anything in current military specifications." Marcus studied her notes, immediately recognizing the analytical approach of someone with extensive training in exotic technologies. His suspicions were confirmed when Alina began discussing theoretical applications that wouldn't be declassified for another decade. "You seem to know a lot about classified systems for a civilian contractor," Marcus observed carefully. Alina looked up, meeting his gaze directly. "I could say the same about you. Your resume says you were a communications specialist, but your assessment of these components suggests training in electronic warfare and signal intelligence." They worked in companionable silence for the next several hours, each recognizing in the other a professional competence that extended far beyond their official roles. Marcus found himself genuinely enjoying Alina's company. She was brilliant, focused, and possessed a dry sense of humor that emerged during their technical discussions. As the weeks progressed, their professional relationship evolved into something resembling friendship. Alina was fascinated by Marcus's ability to improvise solutions using whatever materials were available, a skill he'd developed during countless deployments in remote locations. Marcus, meanwhile, was impressed by Alina's theoretical knowledge and her ability to visualize complex systems in ways that seemed almost intuitive. Neither realized they were both maintaining elaborate deceptions. Marcus assumed Alina was probably CIA or NSA, conducting her own assessment of the Meridian technology. Alina believed Marcus was a highly trained special operations veteran who'd been assigned to monitor her activities. This mutual misunderstanding created a foundation of professional respect built on entirely incorrect assumptions. The Meridian Project officially concluded after 6 weeks, But Marcus and Alina continued working together on subsequent assignments. Their collaboration proved so effective that Janet began pairing them automatically, joking that they seemed to read each other's minds when tackling complex problems. During quiet moments between projects, Marcus found himself sharing carefully edited stories from his military service. He told Alina about learning to repair communications equipment using spare parts scavenged from abandoned vehicles, about maintaining satellite uplinks while under enemy fire, about the strange brotherhood that developed among soldiers who'd shared impossible circumstances. Alina reciprocated with stories about her theoretical research, describing breakthrough moments when seemingly unsolvable equations suddenly revealed elegant solutions. She spoke passionately about the beauty of universal physical laws and the satisfaction of discovering new applications for established principles. What neither of them mentioned were the deeper truths that defined their actual identities. Marcus never spoke about the classified operations that had taken him to places that didn't officially exist, or about the advanced technologies he'd been exposed to during his time with units that were never formally acknowledged. Alina never mentioned that her theoretical knowledge came from direct experience with technologies centuries in advance of human development, or that her passionate interest in physical laws stemmed from growing up on a world where those laws operated slightly differently than they did on Earth. Their carefully maintained deceptions might have continued indefinitely, if not for an incident that occurred during their fourth month working together. Marcus was calibrating a sensitive detection array when the equipment began displaying readings that defied explanation. The energy signatures weren't matching any known patterns, and the frequency outputs suggested the presence of technologies that shouldn't have existed outside of theoretical physics papers. "Alina, you need to see this," Marcus called, his voice tight with concern. Alina approached the workstation and immediately recognized the readings. Someone else with access to advanced collective technology was operating nearby, and their activities were generating detectable electromagnetic signatures. This represented a potentially catastrophic security breach that could expose her entire mission. "We need to shut down the array immediately," Alina said, reaching for the power controls. "Wait," Marcus said, studying the display more carefully. "These patterns. I've seen something similar before. During a deployment in Afghanistan, we encountered equipment that generated comparable signatures. Command never explained what we'd found, but the incident was classified at the highest levels." Alina froze, her hand halfway to the controls. If Marcus had previous exposure to advanced technology, his presence at Davidson might not be coincidental. The possibility that she'd been under surveillance for months without realizing it sent a chill through her enhanced nervous system. The detector array continued displaying impossible readings, each data point representing a potential threat to carefully maintained secrets that both Marcus and Alina were determined to protect. The strange readings persisted for 3 days, creating an atmosphere of tension that both Marcus and Alina struggled to navigate while maintaining their professional facades. Each morning brought new anomalous data that challenged their understanding of the equipment they'd been working with for months. More troubling was the growing suspicion that someone else was aware of their activities. Marcus found himself falling back on training from his time with the 75th Rangers, particularly lessons about operational security in hostile environments. He began varying his routes to work, checking for surveillance, and paying closer attention to the behavior of his colleagues. His military instincts, dormant for years, reasserted themselves with uncomfortable familiarity. Alina faced a different but equally serious problem. The electromagnetic signatures detected by their equipment matched the energy patterns generated by collective technology, suggesting that other members of her species might be operating on Earth without authorization from the scouting mission. This possibility violated numerous protocols and could indicate either a security breach or a rogue operation that threatened her own mission's success. The situation escalated on Thursday morning when Marcus arrived at Davidson to find Alina already in the laboratory, her usually composed demeanor replaced by barely controlled anxiety. She was running diagnostic tests on equipment that had been functioning perfectly the previous day, her movements sharp and focused in a way that reminded Marcus of soldiers preparing for combat. "The readings have changed," Alina said without preamble. "Whatever was generating those signatures has moved closer. Based on the signal strength, I estimate the source is now within a 2-mile radius of this facility." Marcus studied the latest data, his analytical skills honed by years of intelligence work. The progression of signal strengths over the past 3 days suggested deliberate movement rather than random activity. Someone was conducting reconnaissance, gathering information about Davidson Electronics, and possibly about the specific work being conducted in their laboratory. "This looks like a surveillance pattern," Marcus said carefully. "Someone is mapping our operations." Alina nodded, her expression grim. "The question is whether they're interested in the Meridian project specifically, or if they're gathering broader intelligence about defense contractor activities in the Portland area." What neither of them said aloud was that the approaching presence represented a threat to secrets they couldn't afford to have exposed. Marcus's actual background included operations that officially never happened, while Alina's true identity could trigger an interplanetary incident if discovered by the wrong people. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Janet Williams, who looked unusually serious, as she entered the laboratory carrying a sealed envelope marked with security classifications that made Marcus's pulse quicken. "We have a problem," Janet announced. "Command has received intelligence suggesting that our facility may be under surveillance by unknown parties. Effective immediately, all classified projects are being suspended pending a security review." Marcus felt his stomach drop. A formal security investigation would involve background checks far more thorough than the routine screening he'd undergone when hired. His carefully constructed civilian identity could survive casual scrutiny, but dedicated intelligence professionals would eventually uncover inconsistencies that would lead to uncomfortable questions. Elena's reaction was even more pronounced. Her face went pale, and Marcus noticed her hands trembling slightly as she processed the implications of Janet's announcement. If Elena was who Marcus suspected she might be, a deep-cover intelligence operative, a security review could expose her just as thoroughly as it would expose him. "How long before the investigation begins?" Elena asked, her voice carefully controlled. "Teams arrive Monday morning," Janet replied. "Until then, all classified materials need to be secured according to Protocol 7 procedures. I'm sorry, but you'll both need to find other assignments until this is resolved." After Janet left, Marcus and Elena worked in silence to secure their equipment and documentation. The familiar routine of operational security protocols helped calm Marcus's nerves, but he could see that Elena was struggling with anxiety that seemed disproportionate to the situation. "You look like someone who's had experience with security investigations," Marcus observed as they locked away the last of the Meridian components. Elena paused in her work, studying Marcus's expression carefully. "I could say the same about you. Most civilian contractors don't react to security reviews like they're preparing for enemy interrogation." The acknowledgment hung between them like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross. Both recognized that their careful deceptions were becoming unsustainable, but neither knew how much truth they could safely reveal. That evening, Marcus sat in his apartment reviewing his options. He could disappear before Monday morning. His military training had included techniques for establishing new identities and disappearing into civilian populations. But running would mean abandoning a life he'd worked years to build, and more importantly, it would mean leaving Elena to face the investigation alone. Over the months they'd worked together, Marcus had developed feelings for Elena that went beyond professional respect. Her intelligence attracted him, but it was her quiet moments of vulnerability that had won his affection. He'd caught glimpses of loneliness behind her professional competence, a sense of isolation that resonated with his own experience of maintaining false identities. The thought of Elena facing interrogation by intelligence professionals who might not be gentle in their methods made Marcus's protective instinct surge. Whatever secrets she was hiding, he'd grown to care about her too much to simply walk away when she might need help. Friday morning brought an unexpected development. Marcus arrived at Davidson to find Elena already in the parking lot, packing beside her car with obvious agitation. She was speaking rapidly into a phone in what sounded like a foreign language, her tone suggesting heated disagreement with whoever was on the other end of the conversation. When she noticed Marcus approaching, Elena quickly ended the call and attempted to compose herself, but her distress was obvious. "Bad news from family," Marcus asked gently. Elena laughed bitterly. "You could say that. My supervisors aren't happy about the current situation. They're suggesting I might need to consider alternative arrangements." The phrasing struck Marcus as odd. Civilian employers might terminate an employee facing security issues, but they wouldn't typically frame the decision as needing to consider alternative arrangements. The language sounded more like the euphemisms used in intelligence work when discussing asset extraction or identity changes. "Elena," Marcus said carefully, "I think we need to have an honest conversation about who we really are." Elena met his gaze, and Marcus saw fear there, but also a desperate hope that perhaps honesty might offer solutions that continued deception couldn't provide. "That's a dangerous conversation," Elena said quietly, "for both of us." "Maybe," Marcus agreed, "but I think the alternatives might be worse." They walked to a small park several blocks from Davidson, choosing a bench that offered clear sight lines in all directions, a precaution that both understood without discussion. For several minutes, they sat in silence, each wrestling with decisions that could reshape their lives irrevocably. "I'm not who I told you I was," Elena said finally. "My background, my training, even my name, most of it is fabricated identity designed to allow me to operate in this environment." Marcus nodded. "I figured as much. The question is whether you're CIA, NSA, or something else entirely." Elena looked at him with an expression that mixed surprise with something that might have been relief. "You're taking this rather calmly for someone who just learned his colleague is an intelligence operative." "That's because I'm not exactly who I claim to be either," Marcus admitted. "My military service included assignments that don't appear in official records. I've been maintaining a false identity for years." Elena studied his face carefully. "Special operations." "Among other things," Marcus said. "Classified deep enough that discussing details could land both of us in federal prison." Elena was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus could see her weighing options with the careful consideration of someone trained to make life-or-death decisions under pressure. "Marcus," she said finally. What if I told you that my situation was more complicated than intelligence work? What if my background involved things that would challenge everything you think you know about the world? Marcus considered her words carefully. During his military service, he'd encountered technologies and situations that weren't supposed to exist according to public understanding of scientific possibilities. He'd learned to accept that reality often extended far beyond official acknowledgement. I've seen enough unusual things during my service to know that the world is more complicated than most people realize, Marcus said. Whatever your situation is, I doubt it would be the strangest thing I've encountered. Elena took a deep breath, and Marcus could see her making a decision that terrified and relieved her simultaneously. My real name is Elena, but I'm not from Earth, she said quietly. I'm part of an advanced scouting mission from a civilization that has been studying human development for decades. I've been living among humans for 3 years, conducting research on human innovation and adaptation capabilities. Marcus stared at her for several heartbeats, his mind racing through implications and possibilities. His first instinct was disbelief, but Elena's expression was completely serious, and her body language suggested the relief of someone finally telling a truth they'd been desperate to share. Extraterrestrial, Marcus said slowly. From another planet. Yes, Elena confirmed. And based on the electromagnetic signatures our equipment detected, I believe other members of my species may be operating on Earth without authorization, which could compromise both my mission and Earth's security. Marcus found himself laughing, a reaction that clearly surprised Elena. You know what the strange thing is? That actually explains a lot about you. Your theoretical knowledge, your ability to visualize complex systems, even the way you approach problem solving. It always seemed like you were drawing on information that went beyond human understanding. You believe me? Elena asked, her voice filled with cautious hope. I've learned to keep an open mind about impossible things, Marcus said. Besides, if you were going to lie about your background, you'd probably come up with something more believable than being an alien scout. Elena smiled for the first time in days. Your acceptance of this information suggests that your own background might be more unusual than typical special operations work. Marcus nodded. During my last deployment, my unit encountered technology that officially doesn't exist. We were never briefed on what we'd found, but the incident was classified at levels that suggested national security implications beyond normal military operations. I've always wondered if we'd stumbled across evidence of non-human technology. It's possible, Elena said. My people have been monitoring human military development, particularly your species' tendency to reverse engineer captured technology at remarkable speed. The conversation was interrupted by Marcus's phone buzzing with a text message from an unknown number. "Your girlfriend isn't what she seems. Neither are you. We should meet. Tonight. Pioneer Courthouse Square. Come alone." Marcus showed Alina the message, watching her face go pale as she read it. "Someone knows," Alina said quietly, "about both of us." "Then we'd better figure out who they are and what they want," Marcus replied, his military training asserting itself. "Because running isn't an option anymore." The hours between receiving the anonymous message and the designated meeting time passed with agonizing slowness. Marcus and Alina retreated to his apartment, reasoning that it offered better security than public spaces where they might be observed. The afternoon was spent in careful planning, drawing on their respective training to prepare for what could be either negotiation or confrontation. Alina's alien technology, carefully concealed within seemingly ordinary electronics, provided sophisticated scanning capabilities that revealed the full extent of their predicament. 3 separate surveillance teams had been monitoring their activities for the past week, using equipment that registered as military grade, but with signatures Alina didn't recognize from any human technology in her databases. "These aren't standard intelligence operations," Alina explained as she analyzed the scanner data. "The energy patterns suggest advanced technology, but not from my people. Someone else is involved, and they have capabilities that could pose a threat to both human and collective security." Marcus studied the surveillance patterns, his special operations experience allowing him to identify positioning and movement strategies that suggested professional military training. The team composition looks like Special Activities Division, small units with specialized capabilities. The kind of people who handle situations that can't be acknowledged officially. The implications were sobering. If they were dealing with a black operations team equipped with advanced technology, their options were extremely limited. Running would only delay the inevitable, while attempting to contact official authorities could expose secrets that neither Earth nor the collective were prepared to handle. As evening approached, Marcus made final preparations for the meeting. His apartment contained equipment that most civilians wouldn't recognize: detection devices, communication gear, and defensive tools that reflected his actual background rather than his cover identity. Alina watched him work with fascination, noting the efficiency of movements that spoke to years of preparation for situations exactly like this. "You're not just special operations," Alina observed. "Your equipment and training suggest intelligence work, possibly at the highest levels." Marcus paused in his preparations. "After my time with the Rangers, I was recruited for assignments that required different skills: counterintelligence, threat assessment, situations where the existence of the operation itself needed to remain classified, which means you have experience dealing with scenarios where multiple parties are concealing their true capabilities and intentions, Alina said. That could be valuable tonight. Marcus nodded. The key is determining what our mysterious contact wants and whether their goals align with our survival. They arrived at Pioneer Courthouse Square separately, using different routes and maintaining communication through encrypted channels that Alina's technology made virtually undetectable. The square was moderately busy for a Friday evening, with enough pedestrian traffic to provide cover but not so crowded as to make surveillance difficult. Marcus positioned himself near the courthouse steps, using the elevated position to observe the square while remaining visible to anyone looking for him. Alina took a position in a coffee shop across the street, her advanced scanning equipment allowing her to monitor the area for threats while maintaining the appearance of a casual evening out. At exactly 8 o'clock, a woman approached Marcus's position. She appeared to be in her 30s, professionally dressed but with subtle indicators that suggested military bearing. What made Marcus's pulse quicken was the way she moved, with the controlled awareness of someone accustomed to dangerous environments. "Mr. Thompson," she said as she reached the courthouse steps, "thank you for coming. I'm Agent Sarah Mitchell, and we need to discuss your situation." Marcus studied her carefully, noting details that confirmed his assessment of her background. What situation would that be? Agent Mitchell smiled, but the expression didn't reach her eyes. "The situation where you and Dr. Vasquez have been conducting unauthorized research using classified technology while maintaining false identities that wouldn't survive serious scrutiny." "That's a lot of assumptions," Marcus replied carefully. Marcus Thompson discharged from the Army 8 years ago after serving with the 75th Ranger Regiment, Mitchell recited. Subsequent assignments with classified units that officially don't exist. Current employment at Davidson Electronics under an identity that obscures your actual security clearance and operational history. Mitchell's information was too accurate to have come from standard background checks. Someone with access to the most classified levels of military records had been investigating him thoroughly. Dr. Alina Vasquez, Mitchell continued, advanced degrees in theoretical physics from institutions that have no record of her attendance. Technical knowledge that exceeds current human understanding of electromagnetic theory. Behavioral patterns consistent with long-term deep cover operations. Alina's voice came through Marcus's earpiece, transmitted by her alien communication technology. "She knows too much about both of us. This isn't a standard intelligence operation." Marcus made a subtle gesture acknowledging Alina's transmission. "What do you want, Agent Mitchell?" I represent an organization that monitors threats to global security, particularly those involving advanced technology and non-human intelligence," Mitchell replied. "Recent events have brought your activities to our attention, along with electromagnetic signatures that suggest the presence of extraterrestrial technology in the Portland area." The directness of Mitchell's statement was startling. Marcus had expected careful euphemisms and plausible deniability, not open acknowledgement of alien presence on Earth. "That's an interesting theory," Marcus said carefully. "Mr. Thompson, we know that Dr. Vasquez isn't human," Mitchell stated bluntly. "Our scanning equipment has detected physiological differences that are consistent with non-terrestrial origin. We also know that you've been exposed to advanced technology during your military service, and that your presence at Davidson Electronics wasn't coincidental." Alina's voice came through Marcus's earpiece again, tense with controlled panic. "Multiple heat signatures moving into position around the square. We're being surrounded." Marcus processed the tactical situation rapidly. If Mitchell's organization had capabilities sufficient to detect Alina's true nature, they likely had resources that made escape unlikely. The key was determining whether they faced interrogation, elimination, or something else entirely. "What exactly does your organization want?" Marcus asked. "We want to offer you a choice," Mitchell replied. "Dr. Vasquez's presence on Earth represents either a threat or an opportunity, depending on her intentions and the nature of her mission. Your involvement with her suggests that you may have information that could help us make that determination. And if we're not interested in cooperating?" Mitchell's expression hardened. "Then we'll be forced to treat this as a security threat requiring immediate containment. Neither of you would survive the experience." Alina's voice came through Marcus's earpiece, now carrying urgency that made his military instincts surge. "Energy readings are spiking. They have technology I don't recognize, and it's powering up for some kind of operation." Marcus made a decision based on years of experience in situations where hesitation meant death. "Agent Mitchell, I think there's something you should know about the electromagnetic signatures you've been tracking." "Go on," Mitchell said, leaning forward slightly. "They're not generated by Dr. Vasquez's presence," Marcus said. "According to our analysis, the signatures suggest multiple sources of advanced technology operating in this area. If Dr. Vasquez represents one source, then your organization should be concerned about who or what represents the others." Mitchell's confident expression flickered, replaced by something that looked like concern. "Explain." "The patterns we detected suggest at least 3 separate sources of non-human technology," Marcus continued, improvising based on Alina's earlier analysis while hopping to buy time for a better solution. If your organization has been monitoring Dr. Vasquez, then you should be asking who's been monitoring your organization. Alina's voice came through his earpiece, carrying new information that changed everything. Marcus, I'm detecting massive energy buildup from multiple locations around the square. This isn't a containment operation. Someone is preparing for combat. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. If Mitchell's organization was preparing for combat, and Alina detected multiple sources of advanced technology, then the situation was far more complex than a simple intelligence operation. Agent Mitchell, Marcus said urgently, how many teams does your organization have deployed in this area? Mitchell's expression shifted from confidence to alarm. 2 surveillance teams and 1 tactical unit. Why? Because according to our scanning equipment, there are at least 6 separate groups with advanced technology positioned around this square, Marcus replied, which means most of them don't work for you. The first explosion came from the northwest corner of the square, followed immediately by the distinctive whine of energy weapons that shouldn't have existed according to public understanding of military technology. Civilians began screaming and running as flashes of light erupted between buildings, and the night air filled with the ozone smell of discharged plasma. Mitchell grabbed Marcus's arm. We need to get you and Dr. Vasquez to safety immediately. This has become a combat situation. Alina's voice crackled through Marcus's earpiece, now accompanied by static that suggested her communication equipment was being jammed. Multiple hostile contacts moving toward your position. I'm engaging defensive protocols. Marcus saw Alina emerge from the coffee shop across the square, no longer maintaining her human disguise. Her movements were too fast and too precise for baseline human capabilities, and the device in her hands was generating energy patterns that made the air shimmer around her. That's not possible, Mitchell breathed, staring at Alina's display of alien technology. Our intelligence suggested she was conducting reconnaissance, not preparing for combat operations. Agent Mitchell, Marcus said grimly, I don't think Dr. Vasquez is the only alien operating in this area, and I don't think reconnaissance is the only mission being conducted. The battle for Pioneer Courthouse Square had begun, and Marcus realized that everything he thought he understood about Alina's presence on Earth was about to change dramatically. The combat that erupted in Pioneer Courthouse Square defied every tactical situation Marcus had encountered during his military career. Energy weapons discharged with sounds like thunder, creating brilliant flashes that turned night into temporary day. Advanced technology that shouldn't have existed according to human understanding of physics was being deployed by multiple factions, each apparently pursuing different objectives. Elena moved through the chaos with fluid grace that revealed her non-human nature completely. Her defensive systems projected barriers of energy that deflected incoming fire, while her scanning equipment identified threats with superhuman accuracy. Marcus watched her coordinate multiple defensive actions simultaneously, her alien capabilities now fully unleashed. Agent Mitchell's tactical team responded with equipment that seemed almost as advanced as Elena's technology. Their weapons generated similar energy discharges, and their defensive gear incorporated stealth capabilities that made them difficult to target. The implications were staggering. Human military development had apparently progressed far beyond public knowledge. "Mitchell," Marcus shouted over the sound of energy weapons. "How long has your organization known about alien technology?" "Longer than you might think," Mitchell replied, checking her weapon's power levels. "We've been reverse engineering recovered technology for decades. The question is how many different alien factions are currently operating on Earth." Elena's voice came through Marcus's earpiece, now clear again as her systems adapted to the jamming attempts. "I count at least 4 distinct technology signatures, including my own. This represents a massive security breach that violates every protocol established by the collective." Marcus processed the tactical situation rapidly. Multiple alien factions were engaged in combat using advanced technology in the middle of an American city, while a secret human organization with apparently comparable capabilities was attempting to contain the situation. The potential for civilian casualties was enormous, and the risk of exposure could trigger diplomatic or military consequences that might affect the entire planet. "Elena, can your people be contacted?" Marcus asked, using his earpiece while taking cover behind a concrete barrier. "I've been trying to establish communication with my supervisors since the fighting began," Elena replied. "Something is interfering with long-range communications. Either someone is jamming signals or there's been a catastrophic failure of collective communication systems." A new voice crackled over Mitchell's radio, speaking in urgent tones that suggested the situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Command, this is Team 7. We have multiple hostile contacts using technology that exceeds our capabilities, requesting immediate backup and authorization for enhanced countermeasures." Mitchell's response revealed the scope of resources her organization could deploy. "Team 7, backup is en route. You are authorized for full-spectrum engagement. Priority is containment and intelligence gathering." Marcus realized that full-spectrum engagement likely meant weapons and tactics that would make the current battle seem restrained by comparison. If Mitchell's organization escalated their response, the collateral damage could be catastrophic. "Agent Mitchell," Marcus said urgently, Escalating this fight in the middle of Portland is going to result in massive civilian casualties and exposure that your organization can't possibly contain. We're aware of the risks, Mitchell replied grimly. But allowing multiple alien factions to conduct combat operations on American soil poses threats that exceed immediate collateral concerns. Alina's situation had become increasingly desperate. While her defensive capabilities were impressive, she was vastly outnumbered by hostile forces whose intentions remained unclear. Her scanning equipment indicated that at least one group was attempting to capture rather than eliminate her, suggesting intelligence-gathering operations rather than simple combat. "Marcus, I need extraction assistance," Alina transmitted. "Multiple hostiles are converging on my position, and my defensive systems are reaching power limitations." Marcus made a decision that drew on every aspect of his military and intelligence training. The situation required immediate action that balanced Alina's survival against the broader security implications of the battle. "Mitchell, I'm going to help Dr. Vasquez reach a defensible position," Marcus announced. "Your people can provide covering fire or deal with the consequences of losing our best source of information about alien activities on Earth." Mitchell considered his words for approximately 3 seconds before nodding grimly. "Team 7, provide covering fire for civilian extraction. Priority target is the female with advanced defensive capabilities." Marcus moved across the square using urban combat techniques honed during years of special operations. The energy weapons created unusual tactical challenges. Their discharges could penetrate traditional cover while creating electromagnetic interference that disrupted standard communication equipment. He adapted by using movement patterns designed for environments with multiple threat vectors and unpredictable weapon effects. Alina saw him approaching and moved to meet him halfway, her defensive systems creating a corridor of relative safety through the chaos. When they reached each other, Marcus was struck by how different she appeared when her alien nature was no longer concealed. Her movements were too fluid, her reflexes too quick, and her awareness of the tactical situation seemed to extend beyond human sensory capabilities. "The situation is worse than I initially assessed," Alina said as they took cover together. "One of the hostile groups is using technology that matches collective specifications, but with modifications that suggest unauthorized development." "Meaning what?" Marcus asked. "Meaning someone has been reverse engineering collective technology without authorization, possibly for decades," Alina replied. "The implications for both Earth and collective security are catastrophic." Agent Mitchell's voice came over Marcus's earpiece, carrying information that changed the entire tactical situation. "Thompson, We're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from multiple directions. Whatever is happening in Portland appears to be escalating into something much larger. Elena's scanning equipment confirmed Mitchell's assessment. Multiple spacecraft are entering Earth's atmosphere, she reported. Energy signatures match collective technology, but also several other civilizations that shouldn't have any knowledge of Earth's location. Marcus realized they were witnessing the beginning of what could become an interplanetary incident. Multiple alien civilizations were apparently converging on Earth, possibly in response to the unauthorized technology development that Elena had detected. Elena, what happens if multiple alien civilizations discover that Earth has been reverse engineering their technology without permission? Marcus asked. Elena's expression was grim. Depending on the civilizations involved, the consequences could range from diplomatic sanctions to preemptive military action designed to prevent further unauthorized development. The sound of approaching aircraft interrupted their conversation. Military helicopters were converging on Pioneer Courthouse Square, carrying equipment that generated energy signatures comparable to the alien technology already being deployed. The human response was escalating rapidly, suggesting that Mitchell's organization had resources that extended far beyond a simple intelligence operation. Agent Mitchell, Marcus called over his earpiece. How extensive are your organization's capabilities? Extensive enough to handle situations like this, Mitchell replied. We've been preparing for extraterrestrial contact scenarios for longer than most people realize. Elena's scanning equipment detected new arrivals that made the situation even more complex. Marcus, I'm reading human technology that incorporates design principles from at least 3 different alien civilizations. Your species has apparently been reverse engineering recovered technology on a massive scale. The implications were staggering. If humanity had been secretly developing alien-derived technology for decades, then Earth's actual military capabilities were far beyond public knowledge. The current battle represented not just conflict between alien factions, but the first deployment of human technology that could compete with advanced extraterrestrial capabilities. Elena, Marcus said, I think we're witnessing something that could change the relationship between Earth and every other civilization in the galaxy. Elena nodded grimly. The question is whether those changes will result in Earth being welcomed as an emerging technological power, or eliminated as an unauthorized threat to galactic security. The battle for Pioneer Courthouse Square was evolving into something that neither of them had been prepared to handle, and the decisions made in the next few hours could determine the future of human civilization. The arrival of spacecraft in Earth's atmosphere transformed the battle from a localized skirmish into a confrontation with interplanetary implications. Alina's scanning equipment identified vessels from at least 4 different civilizations, each apparently responding to the unauthorized use of advanced technology that had triggered the conflict in Pioneer Courthouse Square. Agent Mitchell's organization revealed capabilities that stunned even Marcus's experienced assessment of military readiness. Advanced aircraft emerged from concealed positions around Portland, their energy signatures matching the alien technology, while incorporating design elements that were distinctly human. The implications were clear. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. "Command, this is Mitchell," the agent reported over her communication system. "We have confirmed extraterrestrial contact with multiple civilizations, initiating Protocol 7 and requesting immediate deployment of diplomatic assets." Alina looked at Marcus with an expression that mixed amazement with concern. "Your species has developed contingency plans for multiple civilization contact scenarios. The level of preparation suggests extensive prior knowledge of galactic politics." Marcus processed the strategic situation with skills honed during years of intelligence work. "Alina, how much did your people know about human military development when they sent you here?" "We knew humans were technologically innovative, but we underestimated the extent of reverse engineering capabilities," Alina admitted. "My mission was to assess human potential, not to monitor unauthorized technology development."